Padlets so people can share. I really like also too when people use a visual representation. Sometimes it's a good way to do Padlets. Instead of having the students write, you can say, I want a visual to represent your philosophy. So this is good. Like, I get that, right? Helping students succeed, helping students rise. It's a great visualization. So we have a lot of good answers. We had some groups share with me, kind of just individually, but just take a look at what's up there. I do like the students at the center of education. That's a big part of mine, so that's very good. Passion, flexibility, make students feel they fit in this role perfectly. That's a really good one. Motivating students to love life. I love that. Right? It has nothing to do with a test, but I think we would all want our students to have that. Very good. All right, so let's go back to the presentation. I'm going to share with you mine, and we're not going to spend much time with it. I just want you to see it, and you can look at it later or something. But it starts with relationships, and the second is growth mindset. And I'm going to talk about growth mindset in a minute. So you can go to this. Part of this is the idea of every child, every day, which goes to that relationships. When I was teaching, I look back and say, all the mistakes I made, that video where the student gets on the bus, right, and he was ignored. And I can think that I'm sure there was times in which I thought an email was more important than a student. And I think back and just like, oh, I can't believe I did that. So I really firmly believe about this every child, every day. And that's changed a lot about my approach to helping all kids all the time. Because sometimes you're just tired and it's a bad day. And it's easy just to say, I'm busy, I'm tired. And it's hard, but you got to try. So that's the first part. The second is growth mindset. This, I'm not sure it's necessarily a new thing, but it's from the research from a researcher named Carol Dweck. Not sure if you've heard of Carol Dweck. Yeah, see, look, it's all the same stuff. I'm teaching you nothing new. And this is the second thing that changed my life in teaching. Is that for so long, we thought this way. I personally, when I was a student, thought I was good at these things and bad at these things. And there might be some truth to I'm better at some things and better at others, or worse at others. But the reality is that in almost anything, you can grow. And it's the focus on growth that's really important. So Doug talked earlier about challenging kids at different levels. I would rather have a student way down here get to right here than a student who's right there, and at the end of the year, they're right there. And I think that changed the way I think and helped me approach every child. So take a look at this. I believe this is a link to some of her research. It is. Don't click on it. But if you click on this, it'll take you to a lot of information from Carol Dweck about learning more about growth mindset. Yes. All right, next slide. So this is where we're going to focus our work, is this concept of visible learning. And I'm not sure how much was shared with you this past week. But the definition by John Hattie is, and this is right from his webpage, visible learning in teaching occurs when teachers see learning through the eyes of the students and help them become their own teachers. And once again, Doug talked about this too at the beginning, helping students see through the student's perspective. Right? It's really about this concept, and it goes back to the 2020 skills. I don't remember much from my K through 12 schooling. I just don't. Can't remember specific things. I surely learned something. I'm here, but I don't remember what. But I can tell you what I did learn. I learned how to be a lifelong learner. And when we're preparing for students to work in jobs that don't exist yet, you haven't taught that stuff yet. You can't. But if they know how to learn, we've succeeded. So that's what visible learning really ends up being about, is teaching students how to learn, owning their own learning. It's tough, but we'll get into it. All right, next slide. So, oh wait, hold on. We'll go back again. I believe this is one of the handouts. This right here, this link, go ahead and click on it. I want to make sure what it is. No, this is to his website, but the website is just a wealth of information. Videos by John Hattie, videos by other people, research. It's great. I really recommend after this conference spending some time digging into this work. It's the best work I've seen in education. It talked about it, I believe, earlier, and what John Hattie did is he's a researcher from Australia, and he did a meta-analysis. I believe it's over 1,000 different research projects that he's done a meta-analysis of, over 300 million students worth of information, and he's listed what actually works and what doesn't. You just can't get better than that. What the book does, and I highly recommend, and we're going to give away a copy tomorrow. I was going to give it today. Where am I? Not in school, not in the classroom, not at a desk, but what they know. What do they currently know about the topic? And that's very different than what are you doing? Because I could go into a classroom and say, what are you doing? And it's math. But if I say, what do you know about what you're doing? Very different answer. And I will tell you, when I was in school, I probably couldn't answer that a lot. It was I just didn't know. And I know when I was teaching, in my first many years, I didn't do a good job as a teacher for having my students visibly knowing what they knew. They couldn't own their own learning because I didn't share it with them. The second part is, where am I going? So if I know what I know, I also need to know what are the next steps. If I'm doing math's just so good with this. What's my ultimate goal? Why am I doing what I'm doing now? And how do I, then the last part, how do I get there? And this really ends up being the most important, but you have to know the first two first. How do I get there? That's really when students own their learning. What resources do I need as a student? What activities is the teacher going to provide me? What strategies can I do, or the teacher can help me with to get to those goals that you've set, to get to that mastery of learning that I need to know? And at any point in the time, a student should know those three things. That changed the way I taught, and it changed the success of my students better than anything I've ever done. Now, in order to do these things, there are a ton of ways to do it. In fact, you probably know a lot of them. It's just about taking the things that you already do a good job of and then fitting them into this framework so students know it. And what I recommend is putting this on a classroom wall, those words, and start having it be a part of the daily vocabulary, daily conversation. It's an expectation that at any point in time, the student should be able to answer that. And if they can't, you also need to think, is that because I didn't give it to them or I didn't help them with it? So it's a good way to be reflective. I believe if you click on this one, try that, yeah. This is a PDF. It's a summary of the book. No, it's not. That's wrong. We have the summary somewhere. I'll find it for you. But we have a summary of the book. So for those of you who don't get the book, you'll have a really good summary. The summary might be better because it's a summary. We were going to think, pair, share. Has everybody done think, pair, share? Very simple. You think about it by yourself. You would watch the video, you would think about it by yourself, you would share with a pair, with another person, and then you would all talk about it. You use a Padlet or just talk. That's what I think, pair, share. But since we skipped Dale Williams, just short on time. All right. So the next part is, where am I going? Which is really about the next steps in the learning, your goals. So as I wrote, clarity is very important. We witnessed that through a bad example. Right? We witnessed that through a bad example. I wasn't very clear. You didn't know where you're going, and because you didn't know where you're going, you guys struggle with that. And you struggle because of me. You didn't struggle because of you. So that's, I think, a nice example of that. So students should always be setting learning targets or goals. And this is something that I've learned recently, and I can't stress this enough, and I am embarrassed that I never did it. We in America have standards. They're written by the state, the government. It says you need to know this, this, and this. My students, and I would say most classrooms I've ever walked in the United States, the standards were never visible. And I mean the state standards. Now the teacher would say, this is what we're learning today, but never were all the standards visible where the kids could say, okay, I'm learning this today, and then probably in a couple of weeks I'll be learning this, and then in a couple of weeks I'll be learning this. I kept it a secret, right? What's going to be on the test? You're not allowed to know, right? I did that. I mean, I think everybody's done that. You're not allowed to know what's on the test because you might do good. Like, that's really weird to me. So students should always have what they're learning visible. That could be a syllabus, you guys have syllabus, right? Schedule, whatever, because they need to know why what they're learning now relates to what they're learning later. Okay, so then the next thing is goals should be about those standards. If you're tested on it, then your goals should be about what you're tested on, not just other things. Success criteria. This is really important, something that I did an okay job of when I was teaching. I got a lot better at it towards the end. Students need to see an example of what high quality work actually looks like. Here's the challenge. When you expect all the work to look the same, then showing an example of high quality work is like, you see what I'm saying? Like, okay, it needs to be like this, and this is what it looks like. Well then, can you just copy it? Like, so you got to start giving, when teachers do projects, they shouldn't always look the same. It shouldn't be a recipe. They should have different looking work, but they should see examples of what that good work looks like. I don't think I explained that well. But either way, the concept of students should know what high quality work looks like. If they don't know what to shoot for. So feedback. We went through visible learning training at Sycamore, and we actually interviewed all of our students and asked them about feedback. And it surprised us what they said. And pretty much what our students said was this: feedback is the most important thing a teacher can give me outside of relationships. Other things said relationships are more important. If you don't know where you're struggling, if you don't know what you're doing wrong, and if you don't know what you're doing right, then how are you going to do better and grow? And feedback is not a mark. If I get, 100 out of 100, how do you grade like that? Like a 10 out of 10, 100, 100, an A, however you grade. I just know I got a good grade. I don't really know what got me there. And so providing high quality feedback is by far the most important thing. A couple things in that that's part of this, how do I get there, is voice and choice. I talked to you a little bit about that. You watch the videos to learn, you read, you create something. People learn differently, and giving some students choice and how they get there, I found, is incredibly helpful. But that goes back to why that paper is so important. You need to make sure their choices are still appropriate. You don't just let them do whatever. You say, okay, what's going to work for you? And then you check it. Oh yeah, okay, that's going to work. Or you look at it and say, yeah, no, I need you to do this. So, voice and choice. And then the book that I handed out, I need to get, I'll send everybody what that book's called. It's really, really good on voice and choice. And then whoever has it, you can show people, or don't let anybody see it. And as I said at the beginning, students generally are bad at this, and it really takes time. So one thing I wanted to point out, though, is that I participated too. And so did Doug. You really, when you do a gallery walk, you really should do it with the students, because you need to model what the quality feedback, warm and cool, looks like. So I suggest doing it. I will warn you though, they'll struggle with it at first. But if we, like I said before, we talk about the skills needed in 2020, Students need to be able to persuade people, work together, and just be able to provide critical, constructive feedback. They're not going to get that unless they do it. And I can tell you a quick story, which is, this is one of the things when you go into a classroom where a teacher has been working with their students on it, it sounds and looks so different than any other classroom you'll walk into. The kids are constantly talking respectfully to one another about how they can work and do better. It's so different than most classrooms. So I have a quick story, which is I visited a school, and she was a 9th grader, and she hated, just was scared when people told her how she could improve. They gave her feedback, right? She was scared about what they would say. And after 2 years of working with some teachers who did this in their classroom consistently, she said that the most important thing is when people give her feedback. And she asks for it now. What can I do better? And that doesn't just go with her schoolwork, that goes with the other things that she likes to do. That goes with, she was really big into drama and singing. So she would ask, and have feedback in drama and singing, that's all it is. She has completely changed her mindset. Took 2 years, but it's one of the most important things. So gallery walks, do them a lot. It'll be a struggle. Model for the kids, show them how to do it right. But you do have to train them a little bit on what good warm feedback and good cool feedback is all about. And I noticed that people were really concerned about what other people wrote. They wanted to know. And that's a good step. You might not have been comfortable with it, but it's a good step.
Constructive.
Yeah. And I think a lot of you realize it's hard to do, isn't it? Yeah. I struggled with it even. So, good job. Very good job. So, summary. It just goes back to, at any point in time in the learning process, every student and teacher should know where they're at, where they're going, and how they get there. You should be able to, an administrator should be able to walk into a classroom and ask any student any time, well, where are you at with your learning? They can articulate. Well, where are you going with your learning? They can articulate. And then, how are you going to get there? The student can articulate. That'll take a while, but it's very powerful. I just wanted to provide you with some tools. I'm not going to go over them. I'm not going to even show them to you. I just want you to see them. You probably already know some of these. But Google Forms now has quizzes built into it. It's a really nice way. In technology, I gave you a Google Form, the survey at the beginning. Just want you to be aware of that. Nearpod, if you use it, I'm asking if you just need to know all of them. So Nearpod's awesome. It's a really good way to do a presentation and an assessment at the same time. It's wonderful. It's free, mostly free. Google Formative is similar. Check it out. These are all links. And at the bottom it says Master Connect. Go to the next one. Okay, Master Connect. Have you seen Master Connect?
Yes, but I didn't use it.
Okay. I was hoping for a no one time. Master Connect is our major assessment tool now at Sycamore. It is free if you just want to use it yourself as a teacher, which is great. It's all about assessments linked to standards. Every time you make an assessment, every question has to be linked to a standard, which is very different how most teachers have written assessment for. They just kind of write on them and say, oh, this is a good question about the topic. This is a good question about the topic. Not necessarily linked to standards. What they have, though, is millions of teachers sharing assessments. So you can just go on and not even make your own and say, Matt, I teach this grade level and these standards, and then you'll find thousands of pre-made assessments that you can use. And then the biggest, what makes Master Connect so great is it's so easy to see where kids are at. Next slide. This is what it looks like. This is a standard. This is a standard. It's not assessment, assessment, assessment. It's standard, standard, standard. And green means they got it, yellow means not quite, and red means no. They need a lot of help. And so you are using this and you constantly know, and that way you can give it to students. You're green in these areas. You're yellow in these areas. You're red in these areas. For teachers who believe in providing for diverse students and making sure diverse students know the material and then changing what you do for those diverse students, this will be your best friend. If you don't believe in it, it's a lot of work, but if you do believe it, you will.
And with Master and Connect, some of the biggest benefits: A, you can have an electronic test. B, you can have a paper test that the kids have on a Scantron and fill out the answers.
Bubble it.
The computer can take a picture of it and grade it instantly and put it in here. If you teach Romanian or English and they have a writing sample or math, an open-ended question, you can grade that on a rubric and score it a 3 out of 4, bubble it in, computer will take a picture of it and instantly grade it.
Yeah. And so it goes back to, right, visible. The teacher sees, the student sees. Now they wouldn't see all the students would. They would just see theirs.
But what's great is at the beginning, if they're all red, okay, I need to teach them something, and they need to learn. And then the next time you teach, and then the next time you assess, hopefully it looks something like this.
So check it out. You don't have to. It's up to you. If you think it looks cool, check it out.